Is Full Metal Jacket flat point the right stuff in 380 ACP and 32 ACP when we're talking pocket pistols? I've had a lot of people ask me to test Full Metal Jacket flat points in 32 auto and 380 ACP through little pocket pistols. I'm going to do that test today. You know, a flat point will oftentimes penetrate pretty well because it orients itself straight going through the target. It'll get better penetration than what you would get with just a straight Full Metal Jacket that's a round nose, and you would get better penetration than a hollow point. So what I'm going to use today is my little pocket pistols, my 2.75 inch 380 ACP and my 2.7 inch kel-tec P32 and 32 ACP. So very, very similar pistols both, and these configurations are 7+1. So we'll see what we get in a ballistic gel test with our 380 ACP and 32 ACP from pocket pistols with that flat point Full Metal Jacket. So I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy I get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic gel test. So I'm going to go into plain 10% clear ballistics to see what the best potential of those cartridges are. You know, no rib simulation or anything like that in the way that can potentially slow down its penetration. Then we'll move on to doing more of a real world simulation where I'm going to have 4 layers of denim on this first 3-inch piece that represents hitting a pectoral muscle. After that, we're going to have a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard that represents hitting ribs or sternum. 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and then another 1/4 inch MDF at the back to represent hitting back ribs. Clear ballistics is roughly a half representation of the density of flesh, so 3 inches and 16 inches is more like 1.5 inches and 8 inches in an actual living target. So we'll see how that does in our real world simulation and our plain clear ballistics shot best potentials. So we'll do that, and then I'm going to shoot at the steel target to see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. All right, so our 380 ACP is a 95 grain Full Metal Jacket flat point rated at 955 feet per second. Our 32 ACP is a 71 grain Full Metal Jacket flat point rated at 905 feet per second. I believe both those ratings are through a 4-inch barrel, but I'm not sure. So 380 ACP, we were rated at 955. See how close we get to that in our little LCP here. I'm about 5 yards from that target. $850, $869, $856, $898, $893. So not too bad overall for velocity. Definitely a lot lower than rated, but not too bad. Now our 32 ACP, 71 grain, rated at 905 feet per second. Most 71 grain Full Metal Jackets in this pistol get less than 800 feet per second. So let's see what we get with our Winchester here. $668, $635, $652, $708, $642. So that is one of the weakest 32 autos I've ever fired. Very easy to shoot. Now that might actually not be a bad thing, because if we get extreme amounts of penetration with flat points, this might actually bring it down to a more acceptable level, being at such a low velocity. So let's hit our ballistics gel block and see how these two compare. All right, our plain clear ballistics shot, our best potential shot to get really good penetration, because there's no rib simulation in there to slow these down. So let's see what we get with our 380 ACP, the plain clear ballistics. All right. Wow. Let's hit that with our 32 ACP. Let's go take a look. All right, so to be honest here, I was guessing this would happen. I knew that the 380 is a relatively powerful round, and I knew it was going to enter that second block. I didn't know how far in that second block it was going to go, but I had a good idea it was going to enter that second block. Now with the 32, I was thinking maybe that also might do that, but with such low velocity, it might actually do okay. Now if we look at the first 3 inches here where it impacted, you know, there's a little bit of energy dump going on. which simply means you got a lot of tearing going on right away, which is a good thing. You know, we get a little bit of damage going on right away, which is going to put some, you know, energy into the target. And, you know, it looks like with our 380, we went to about 7 inches, and then we started kind of tumbling around, and then it went straight again, and then it tumbled once we got over here towards the back of the second block. And our total penetration, I know parallax will make it look like it's not quite this far, but our track from a straight on view goes right to, I'll call it 30 inches even. So quite a bit of penetration with our 380 ACP. Now, when we look at our 32 auto, we're in a straight line, and right here at about the 9.5 inch mark, it started tumbling a little bit. And then we went to a total penetration of about 18.25 inches. So really not over penetration with that, but yet it still went really deep. So that's kind of impressive overall. Looks pretty good for that. Now let's try a real world simulation with our rib simulation and fabric in place. All right, our real world simulation, 4 layers of denim followed by 3 inches of clear ballistics that represents hitting our pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard that represents hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and another 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard at the back to represent hitting back ribs. I know denim is a little bit redundant, but I like to keep that up there to keep my test consistent, because in some calibers, fabric actually can make a difference even with full metal jacket. It sometimes can throw that balance off a little bit, but let's see what we get with our real world simulation with our 380 ACP. All right. Now let's hit it with our 32 ACP. Let's go take a look. All right, a pretty big difference there, because our 380 went all the way through the back rib simulation, which would say that it is a possibility that even something like a little 380 could pass through an attacker and keep going. So that's very interesting. And if we look at our rib simulation here, we'll take a look. Sometimes this will tell you something, sometimes it won't. Yeah, they just both went in straight. So we were definitely not tumbling right away. And I think that's really the secret to the flat point full metal jacket, is that they can tumble, but they don't want to tumble right away. So they do want to go in adequate depths and do pretty well. Now, if we look at our back rib simulation, this thing really arced over, and we were going in kind of tumbling there with our 380 ACP going through there. So I'll put in our rib sim here in the front, and we'll get a more adequate penetration depth measurement here. So with our 380 ACP, we went through 2 rib simulations, and we went to about 22.25 inches. So yeah, that's a possibility. It's going to come out the other side of an attacker. And now it might not have a lot of power on the other side, so it's not necessarily likely to injure somebody pretty badly, but yeah, it's still a possibility that it could pass through. Now with our 32 auto, I'm going to say this is pretty much perfect. We got about, our track goes a little bit past our bullet. It might be hard to see on camera, but we were right there at about 12.75 inches penetration. So I would say in all accounts here, our 32 ACP really stayed where we want it to stay for penetration. That doesn't necessarily mean that the 32 would be more effective than the 380. In fact, it's likely not. You know, even while passing through, you know, that 380 didn't pass through that far with our real world simulation. So it still put most of that energy into the target. So I would say, you know, our 380 would probably be very effective still. But our 32, it just stayed within the guidelines we want to see of not, you know, under penetrating and not over penetrating. And on top of that, the recoil was a lot lower. So it just, for an average person, it seems like when you're talking pocket pistols, a 32 auto flat point full metal jacket makes a little more sense than a 380, even though the 380 is a better caliber, better cartridge. When you're talking little pocket pistols, you know, there's other things you got to take into account, like that recoil. So I'm going to say the 32 did better here, but let's pull these out of the block. I'll take a close-up look at these bullets. Probably won't show much, but we'll take a close-up look at them. Then I'll shoot our steel, see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets going through plain gel, our 380 ACP and our 32 ACP. So there's really no change to these bullets at all. There's a little bit of a dimple right there from something, I don't know what, but a 380 ACP, not too bad overall. And we look at our 32 ACP, looks pretty much like an unfired bullet. Now if we look at the ones going through our rip simulation, again, there's really no change from the way they started out. Just not enough energy on those to like really flatten them or anything like that. So our 380 ACP. And here's our 32 ACP. Well, just no change really. Both of these are like that. Let's close up a look at those bullets. All right, 14 yards from the target, so I'm gonna fire these off as fast as I think I can while still hitting the target. So if there's a little bit too much muzzle jump, I'll slow down my shooting just a little bit to make up for that. And we'll see if there's a difference here between our 380 here and our 32 ACP for just practical shootability. So 380 ACP, 14 yards from the target. All right, so it shoots a little bit low from my point of aim, but it shoots pretty good overall. So 32 ACP. See what I can do with this. That one shoots so much better. There's no real thought process into it. Like if you could shoot a 9mm pistol pretty good, that kind of translates over to something this tiny shooting 32 ACP. When you're shooting a little pocket 380, the skill set for something like this is a little bit closer to like if you were shooting a 357 Magnum in a little snub nose revolver. It's interesting here. So just the average person is going to be able to fire this one way better than this one. But let me back it up from just a little more distance and see how these do. I think I'll just do 25 yards and see how these do for a little bit more slow fire. All right, 25 yards from the target, so I'm just going to slow fire these things and just kind of see how they shoot from 25 yards, see if they're accurate enough to make some hits at 25 yards. So 380 ACP. That last one went. Yeah, I'm just having some extraction issues. I don't know why, but we'll see what we get here with our 32 ACP from 25 yards. All right, so I pulled some, and it looks like the grouping of them is a little bit more scattered, but I'm gonna be honest here, if I had a situation where I had to shoot from that distance, I think I would rather have something like this, because just getting it back down on target and it's just so much easier. And that missing was just on me. I don't think it's on account of the ammo. It's just on me. So yeah, honestly, I like this a little bit better. So overall, this ammo is pretty good, except it just doesn't want to function in my 380 pistol. You know, a lot of people have the Mandela effect when it comes to my Ruger. They do see that it has malfunctioned a lot, but they haven't seen that I fixed it and then it stopped for like a while and I wasn't getting any issues until I fired some hop ammo. And then it's starting to do it a little bit again. But there was a while there where I had it completely cleared up. And I think it is still cleared up with the 380. I think it's just that some of the ammo just doesn't want to function very well. And I think the flat noses have something to do with that. But looking at this overall, there are definitely some advantages to flat point. Now, when we're talking 380 ACP, I'm going to say that just a round nose full metal jacket or a jacket at hollow point is still acceptable in a pocket pistol, because there are some rounds that will meet the minimum penetration and still get some expansion in hollow points, and our round nose ones still go deep enough, and after they go to a certain depth of, you know, maybe 16, 17 inches, they might start to arc down a little bit and change their direction here. Now with 32 ACP, a lot of times you'll start to get tumbling right away. Now here's the benefit of a flat point full metal jacket over just a regular round nose. There's a thing out there called wounding placement. Most people don't know of it. You know, everybody knows about shot placement. They say it's all about shot placement. That's kind of true and it's kind of not. It's about shot placement and wounding placement. With a lot of low-end rounds, 380, 32, 22s, you can make perfect shot placement, and then the bullet, because it's less powerful or it's lighter, it will kind of arc away from your intended internal target, and it might not be effective at all, because it's going to not hit where you hit on the outside of the target. It's not going to hit that point on the inside. When you're talking flat points, there's a better chance of that shot placement and that wounding placement to correlate with each other and still do the same. It's going to hit on the inside of the target, the same place it hit on the outside of the target, with a flat point, as where a round nose might not. So looking at this overall, I'm going to say with our 380 ACP, I don't think you need a flat point, and I think that if I had round nose, these would be 100% reliable in this pistol. I think it was the noses having some issues, but I don't know, it had some issues extracting too, but that could incorporate more malfunctions, feed jams too, having a flat point. So I would go with round nose for 380. But when we're talking 32 ACP, yeah, I would say that our flat point has some advantages. And another thing about this is those cartridges overall length were long enough. They weren't like the way Buffalo Bore's hard cast flat point was, or a lot of jacket hollow points, where having a flat nose is way too short and you get rim lock. It wasn't like that with this at all. These were actually kind of long overall length while still having that flat point. So I think that was already thought out with making this ammo. So I'm going to say overall here, the better option on a flat point is going to be our 32 auto. It just did a little bit better overall. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.